been in like 30 contested case hearings. What do these things cost? I want to know money. I mean, we're going to have to raise a lot of money to do this, so give us an idea.
There are two ways that an organization can get into a proceeding with the Public Utilities Commission. One is with lawyers and one is without lawyers. Now there's a fundamental difference. If you have lawyers, they know the law inside and out. They don't know your case, and they want you to keep quiet lest you say anything that will hurt them in the preparation of their case. If you go in with non-lawyers, you have the passion, but no understanding of how the regulatory process works. It doesn't mean that one method is better than the other. Life of Land has chosen to do it without lawyers. So I've represented Life of Land once before the Board of Land and Natural Resources, once before the Honolulu Board of Zoning, the Zoning Board of Appeals, twice before the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, and 30 or so times before the Public Utilities Commission. So I'm the strange animal. I don't know of too many other people like myself who try to understand it. But it gives us, I think, an edge. And so our costs are a lot less than if you were to go the other route. For example, in the integrated resource planning process, Sierra Club has applied to intervene. And they're going in and they've identified 3 people. Their statewide director, their senior attorney in San Francisco, and a legal attorney from Earth Justice. So they're putting some high-powered money towards it. So it really depends on which approach you want to take. I like the idea of not doing it with lawyers. I remember in the first case that I was in, the HECO lawyer tried to introduce evidence, like on the 5th day of the 7-day hearing, new evidence. And being my first case and having no clue what I was doing, I jumped up and said, if you dare allow that, I want to bring on climate change and greenhouse gas, three issues, acid rain, I don't know, 3 issues. And the hearing officer went, no, 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 we won't allow any new evidence. So sometimes a non-lawyer can get away with things where a lawyer would say, you're really crossing the line, that's not what a lawyer does. So there are trade-offs. And you can spend as much money as you want or as little money as you want. One of the benefits is that PUC, like many state agencies, are trying to do less and less paper. And paper is one of the things that drives up the cost of litigation. In the Waiahole case, copying cost, I think Earth Justice $100,000 copying all the pages. Luckily, the integrated resource planning process, the commission has said, file anything electronically and it will just appear in the record. And anything in the record can be cited in any other case. So you can stack it for free. So there are ways around the cost. But the more money you have, the less you look at ways of saving money, I think.
And I've just gotten involved recently with this whole Save Pohoiki campaign. So I've learned more than I have ever learned before about it, but I've also been interacting with the public. And most of the public is very enthusiastic about not wanting this to be in Puna. It's been really interesting. But there have been a few people, and when we start really talking about it, they all say, well, we're never going to get it our way. They are going to win. They go under the radar. They have all the power. They have the ears of somehow in power. They don't seem to believe or acknowledge democracy as us post-war baby boom people were raised to believe in it. And they are not working under those assumptions that the people have a say in this. And there's very discouraging in that. And I just want to know, you've been doing this for a long time, what would be your response to that? Thank you.
I would give you a split response on that. First, it's very important to talk to everybody because people change over time. I've had legislators that I've taken positions with, and they'll fight me for 10 years in a row and then turn around and agree with me on an issue. Or I might change my position and agree with them. So dialogue is very important with everyone. The second is that you only want to let in your core group optimists who think you're going to win. That doesn't mean that you have people in the group who don't think for themselves. It doesn't mean you don't include people who have different views. Different views are important. People who think outside the box are important. People who think differently than you think are important. But everybody in the group should believe that you can win. And more important, since you're going to fight it at two different levels, the fire in the community and the cool, dispassionate logic at the regulatory level, you either have people in one or the other, or people who can throw their switch and be in both. By that I mean, I know somebody in the state who is really passionate about renewable energy, and he went before the Public Utilities Commission and basically character assassinated the commissioners in front of them. That is the quickest way you can to sort of totally undermine your case, because those commissioners will remember that person for the next 20 years. So the people who fight the regulatory battle have to be passionate but dispassionate. They can't be the ones who fly off the handle. Let's see, the third one. Oh, the third point. It's not always the numbers. Imagine that you have 100 people out there and 99 oppose you and 1 supports you, and it turns out the 1 is Buddha or Christ or whoever. It doesn't matter necessarily how many numbers you have, it's who you get to. And sometimes there are people in the community who, and you probably all know people like this, who don't have fancy positions, but a lot of people know them, and they're the people who move behind the scenes. And how many of them support you also matters. And talking to people about why we all choose to live in Puna is a way of uniting people, even if they don't support you on the geothermal.
Thank you, Henry. I appreciate your wisdom. We have another question. Come on up.
If Helco has one of these people come in and do their project, and then it turns out that, that it doesn't work the way that they expected, like Russell was talking about, you know, the current one having to drill more and more holes, you know, if it doesn't work out the way that they expected, because it's all speculation, right? Nobody knows the geology under the ground, and they're just speculating that these areas are the best areas. Can they pass that cost on even if the plant doesn't pan out?
Once contracts are really gnarly because they have a lot of public sectors and some private sections. And the private sections are often just as important or more important than the public sections. Once the Public Utilities Commission has approved something, it's very hard to undo it. And therefore the effort is to stop them from doing it in the first place. One of the ways that you can get the commission to have serious second doubts is by dropping demand. Dropping the peak time and the evening energy use. That drives down the need for any kind of generation. It drives down the commission's desire to do this. Now earlier we heard that Helco says their #1 driver is energy, cost. They've said so many times in so many different arenas that it's so many different things. It's all PR, and what Helco says is largely irrelevant because they're owned by HECO, and HECO makes all the serious decisions. So it's what HECO figures. And in the integrated resource planning process, where we might have 20 parties in the PUC hearing, with perhaps a dozen or more law firms representing all kinds of diverse groups in which Puna-Pono Alliance has applied to intervene as we have. That is the docket where we can fight these issues about whether geothermal makes sense compared to other choices. The geothermal is not slated to go online till 2018 to 2020 to 2022. So the PUC is not under a time pressure right now to make an immediate decision. So we need to pressure them in IRP, in integrated resource planning, to make sure they consider all the comparisons of all the different costs. One of the interesting fights also on this island is Aina Ko'apono down in Pahala, where there are 4 parties in that docket: HECO, HELCO, the Consumer Advocate, Life of the Land, and the County of Hawaii. And DBED 5, sorry. Can't count today. But the County of Hawaii and Life of the Land are fighting HELCO on that one. We feel that that project is not needed. So, geothermal is not needed, Aina Ko'apono is not needed, and we need to focus more on solar, and we can do that through the IRP process, through a true comparative analysis. And I think the Public Utilities Commission is expecting a major fight on this issue, so let's bring it on.
Hey Henry, one more quick thing. The IRP and the, what is it, the RFP, request for proposal, that's what this March is all about. That's why we're bringing it to HELCO, because they did the RFP before the IRP, and then in the IRP they never even bothered to come to Pohoa, they only went to Hilo, and that was 6 weeks after the fact. So what is the odds? I mean, can we get them? I mean, I think I'm very positive that maybe they can change their mind, and Ignacio kind of implied that maybe if there was enough pressure, they could pull this RFP. What do you think of that?
I don't think they're going to pull the RFP. I think HELCO is going to select somebody, and then they'll submit a power purchase agreement with the Public Utilities Commission. And a power purchase agreement, a PPA, Pono Alliance, a PPA. PPA can intervene in the PPA docket. And it is in that docket where parties allowed in can see all of the bids and all of the discussions that HELCO has gone on with all the other developers. Now, whoever represents Pono Alliance will not be able to share some of that with the community at large. So you have to trust your leaders to make, to handle it before the Public Utilities Commission. But they will be able to see all of the documents, all of the costs, all of the environmental impacts associated with it, and most important, will be able to ask information requests to the utility, get written responses, and in an evidentiary hearing, cross-examine HECO witnesses. Now I can tell you, it's a real thrill cross-examining HECO witnesses. That's public, and it's immense fun. And you can get them, and what's really marvelous about the evidentiary hearing is that HECO tries to restrict how their witnesses respond, and that makes them look foolish on the stand. And it opens up avenues where you can really force very interesting comments out of them. It was on cross-examination that we got HECO to admit that climate change was real. They didn't do it on their own, but under cross-examination, they began to see that everybody was sort of saying, you don't have a position on that? And the 12th witness said, okay, yeah, it's real, it's us. So discovery and the evidentiary hearing are very powerful, and they're coming, and Pono Alliance will be there. And I don't think the word compromise should be raised until after that hearing is over. Okay, our fourth or fifth last question.
Well, thanks, Henry, for coming here all the way from Oahu. I really appreciate it. I know others do. as well. A few minutes back, you mentioned the Sierra Club and another organization, and there are a lot of groups, and even with a lot of money and power, that are used to campaigns, and there are also private foundations. Some of these people are just looking for a way to spend money. I know there's a mention of people that are allies that are not regular allies at the beginning of your talk. Are there any organizations that might be of help, because this is going to cost money, that might be a huge asset and help in this potentially, that need to be put on the list and be made aware of it, or have some sort of outreach made to them?
That's a good question, and thank you for asking it. It's something my partner Kat said I should mention, and I had forgotten to, so it's a good way to wrap up these Q&A. Regulators are not looking just for why you are critical of their solution. They're looking for what your solution is. Aloha Molokai, for example, is having meetings on a monthly basis on their island where they're bringing in people like the USDA to talk about co-ops. They're bringing in MECO, they're bringing in the State Department of Energy, DBED, the State Department of Business, Economic Development, Tourism. They're bringing in the Consumer Advocate and others to educate their island and then to think among themselves about how they want to move forward, what their solution is. Once they come up with a solution, then they'll be able to sell it to others and have a much greater presence before the Public Utilities Commission. So part of your mission is to figure out what you want your future to be, what your solution for your community is. Nobody else can tell you that. There are many different solutions that could work. It's what your community values and wants, and then you can use that as a way of further reaching out to others.
Thank you, Henry. Appreciate your generosity, your time, and all the wisdom a lot here. We appreciate your wisdom and answering our questions. Give a hand to Henry. It's nice to have a friend in Honolulu.
And if anybody wants to email me, it's henry.lifeoftheland@gmail.com.
So I want to thank all the volunteers that made this event happen today. I want to thank the bands, Brother Cuz and Terrapin Station. They're going to be playing after this break. I want to thank all the people that are coming together to make this march happen. And I ask you to please think about how you might want to contribute. So mahalo to everyone, and we're going to take a short break, and then we'll be on with the music.